Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. Got a lot to dig into on this podcast. We'll discuss, of course, Miami's quarterback pursuit, Darian Mensah, the transfer portal haul as a whole, both the incomings and outgoings, and we'll dig into Miami's 2026 schedule, which was released slash announced on Monday night. So plenty to get into. Before we dive into things, want to, of course, highlight our sponsors, starting with Canes Connection. That is Miami's collective. They assist the Hurricanes in a significant way in this talent acquisition space. So go support those guys. Miami had a national championship caliber team in 2025. We're going to get into it here, but I think this 2026 team also has a chance to make a similar type of run. But putting these rosters together is expensive and it requires more investment year over year. So go support those guys any way you can, any type of donation. It's the best grassroots way to support the program. Go do that at canesconnection.com. Also want to highlight our guy, Nick Musarino at Musarino Law. If you've been injured in any type of accident, slip and fall, car accident, boating accident, trucking accident, Uber or Lyft accident, Nick Musarino is the personal injury attorney that I would hire. He's the guy you should go hire as well if you have needs in this way at 561-960-9870 or visit the website at flinjury.law. Just got off the phone with Nick this morning. He's excited about how things are shaping up for 2026, Gabby. And one more sponsor to highlight now,
Yeah.
Gabby.
Yeah. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in South Florida, you should know Aaron Pascal with Keller Williams, a local born and raised huge Miami Hurricanes fan. He knows Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach inside and out. Grab a free home value report or quick market update. No pressure, just real numbers. Call or text Aaron at 305-497-5773 or visit apascal.kw.com.
All right, so let's dig into the portal. And of course, Gabby, we got to start with quarterback. And Miami is still pursuing, still kind of, tying up the loose ends on this Darian Mensah pursuit. Darian Mensah, of course, the Duke quarterback. Interestingly, too, and the two are connected at the 11th hour of the portal closing. Cooper Barkate, the Duke wide receiver, so 1,000-yard receiver, Darian Mensah's go-to receiver, also decided to enter the transfer portal. I think it's safe to say Miami expects to land both of these players. I think, the question is just when. Can Miami get this done? Figure out a settlement. It seems like things are trending towards a settlement with Duke to get this done and allow Mensah and Barkate to enroll in the spring. Yes, Miami's academic calendar in terms of the last day to enroll in classes for regular students has passed. I think Mensah and Barkate will have the ability to still enroll at Miami, assuming things are kind of ready to go. I would say even by the end of this week. I don't even know if it's going to have to be that long. So let's say midweek. I think the bottom line, Gabby, is that Darian Mensah and Cooper Barkate are going to be Hurricanes. The question, if you're getting in the weeds, is when. Is it going to be now for the spring semester? I think it will be. If it doesn't quite all come together and work out to happen in the spring semester, I think, they'll just enroll in the summer in May. But I expect these two players to join. And, look, this is a big time addition. In my opinion, Darian Mensah is the best quarterback available in the transfer portal this offseason. Does he have, at this stage of his development, and we'll get into this later, but does he have like the NFL traits ready to go right now? Um, like a Brendan Sorsby, like even maybe a Sam Levitt. He's probably a little bit below those guys in terms of just like pure arm talent with arm strength. But I do think Darian Mensah is an NFL caliber quarterback in the future because of his anticipation, his ability to process, his accuracy, his pocket presence. To me, he's great to borderline elite in these areas. The arm strength does need to get better, and I would say his technique, his footwork, and marrying his footwork to his upper body at times needs to get cleaned up, etc. He reminds me a lot when you watch him. His style reminds me a lot of Cam Ward. Cam Ward came to Miami as a much older player, and so he was much more of a finished product. I'm curious, like Darian Mensah leveled up significantly from Tulane to Duke. I'm curious if he can level up again from Duke to Miami. I think he can. Cam Ward, you look at his trajectory, had to start at Incarnate Word for various reasons, leveled up at Washington State, then he leveled up again at Miami. I think a similar type of trajectory is on the table with Darian Mensah. And to me, he's the best quarterback Miami could have landed in this transfer portal cycle. I would personally rank him number one. I'm curious, you've checked out plenty of Darian Mensah now, Gabby too. How his style of play, what does he make you think?
Yeah, I definitely get similar vibes. The play style, I mean, he's like a playmaking quarterback, which I think is what we saw Cam Ward was, and I think that's what made him so special. And I think when you have those playmaking elements where you're able to, not everything has to be on schedule, not everything, the picture doesn't always have to look perfect for you to be efficient. We talked about Carson Beck, and not in a negative way, called like more game managery.
Hmm.
Like Darian Mensah is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum where he can make things happen. He can create plays and create opportunities for himself, and he doesn't need to just kind of go with what's in front of him. So I think that that's what's unique about Darian Mensah. We saw how successful this Miami offense can be with that style of quarterback. Is he Cam Ward? Not saying that. But just stylistically, we saw that this offense can be really, really efficient when you have a quarterback that can extend plays and move the pocket and create extra time and find his guys downfield and have a vertical passing game. And I think that's a lot of what Darian Mensah brings to the table, and that's a big reason why I'm so excited about this opportunity of marrying Miami with Darian Mensah because I think it's a really good fit because I think there's already kind of like a formula to how to work with this style of quarterback. It wasn't like Cam Ward came in and it's like, what's this gonna like? You kind of got to, figure out what's the best fit for this. Obviously, you let Cam Ward be Cam Ward, but I think with Mensah now having already experienced a similar style player in Cam Ward, and there's still so much continuity on offense. I think the transition will be pretty seamless, and then just everything that Mensah can do with his arm and how he can make plays with it is special. So. I don't know where I'd rank him amongst the top guys. Like I think you could probably argue a couple ways with Sorsby and Levitt, but I think just production wise and what's already kind of been done at the Power Five level, Power Four level, I mean, Mensa has produced. That Tulane team that he played on in 2024 was good. Like I think they made a CFP run, right? Um, and then or got close to competing for the CFP. And then last year he takes Duke, and yeah, they lost 5 games, but they won an ACC championship. Like he found ways to win, and he was productive. So really excited about this opportunity that Miami has to add Mensa and what he can bring to the table.
Two areas of improvement that I think are encouraging from Mensa as it relates to what he did at Tulane and Duke. So he did a much better job of pushing the ball downfield at Duke year over year. He led the country in deep shot attempts. So he is an aggressive quarterback. Again, he doesn't have the biggest arm, but he makes up for that with his anticipation, his processing, and his accuracy. So he sees things come open before they're actually open, and he'll place the ball where it needs to be for a guy to go make the play downfield. And also, like again, when he has to like straight up drive the ball into a tight window, that's where, some air, he needs to clean that up, just get more power in his body and more consistent mechanics. Um, but he did improve with his deep shot and ability to push the ball downfield, explosive plays at Duke. The other area was getting the ball out quick. He did a much better job getting the ball out quick behind the line of scrimmage um, at Duke compared to Tulane. I think if I remember right, like at Tulane, when he threw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, he got the ball out in like 1.92 seconds. At Duke, it was 1.8 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a big deal. That's a big difference there. And, that's what Carson really excelled at, was getting the ball out quick in that quick passing game, that quick screen game. And so, in some ways, like this isn't like a perfect thing to say, but in some ways, he's kind of like a blend of Carson and Cam. Like, is he straight up the twitchy playmaker of Cam Ward right now today? No. Maybe he develops into that. Maybe, technically Darian has 2 years of eligibility remaining, and it depends, we'll see how this all
Right. I
goes.
think people are really excited about that, by the way. Like just people I've
Right.
talked, just the concept that he actually has 2 years, I think gets people a little fired up
And I think
from what I've heard.
it depends on his development this year, right? He could take that next step and become that guy that, basically was Cam Ward this year, and he's a first round pick and he's got to go. Maybe that takes 2 years, though. And I would probably project that development to take 2 years. Now, he could improve this year and be good enough to be like a second or third round pick, and maybe that's good enough for him. But I think if he wants to be a first round pick, it's probably going to have to take 2 years. And I think that's on the table, which is a good thing for Miami. So he does have that potential, but then he also blends that with the Carson Beck, game managery ability. And that's a compliment. I'm not saying like that's a bad thing for Darian Mensah, with the accuracy and ability to get the ball out quick. Also, when you watch Duke a lot this year, it's very RPO centric offense, a lot of quick screens as well. And so I would expect that to be expanded in Shannon Dawson's offense. And look, Shannon does a good job of accentuating the quarterback strength, whoever it is. Whatever the quarterback does well, Shannon's going to tailor his offense to what that quarterback does well. And he's going to do that with Darian Mensah. This is a home run edition if it all comes together for Miami again. I think it will. It's just a matter of when. Let's get into his receiver, Gabby, Cooper Barkate. Miami also, as we talked about in the past podcast, Miami already had two transfer portal receivers locked in Vandrevius Jacobs and Cam Vaughn. So to go out and add another guy like a Cooper Barkate, that receiver has to be pretty dang good.
Yep.
What did you think when you watched him?
Yeah, I mean, just a playmaker, man. This is a guy. First of all, I didn't know this. Played at Mater Dei in Southern California, so had like pretty good high school roots. And I saw that Notre Dame, and I think there's another Power Four school offered him before he enrolled in Harvard. Like he followed through with Harvard despite getting like a late Notre Dame offer, and I think
And
another offer from someone else.
I think Notre Dame sniffed around this time too.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. So, I mean, played premium high school football, went to Harvard to, get a great education, became an FCS All-American, transitioned to the Power Four level as kind of a veteran guy and performed at Duke. I mean, over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, over, what is it, 76 catches or so. So he was Darian Mensah's primary weapon. And I think you watch those two, and I think there's clearly chemistry. Like I think Barkate does a really good job. Just again, when Darian Mensah starts like kind of like extending plays, I think
Yep.
Barkate does a really good job of complementing Mensah's extensions by working with him and working back with him. And I think that chemistry is really, really. I thought it was pretty apparent when watching Cooper Barkate the way that he kind of adjusts to what Mensah does and feels him out. So I think just watching them too, I was like, it makes sense that Barkate wants to play with Mensah because it seems like they have a good thing going on. But he's a guy who can extend plays. He can
Hmm.
make plays in like that intermediate game. David, I was looking at Pro Football Focus. He has a 99.9 receiving grade when targeted between 10 to 19 yards.
Hmm.
So he's just like an intermediate got like catch machine, and he can make plays after the catch. He's a yak guy. Like he can. I think his yak was in the same territory as like T.J. Moore. I think he had more than Jeremy Bernard. I think he had more than Jeremiah Smith. Guys that are considered top receivers in college football this year. Like his yak is along those, in that tier of wide receiver. And then he's just good, man. He struggled with drops at the beginning of the year. I think he had 4 drops in the first 4 games, and then didn't have another drop for the rest of the regular season. So he's a talented player. And look, I think his addition, and I don't know if this is hot takey, David. I think his addition, like I think this is the best wide receiver room that Mario Cristobal's had at Miami since he's arrived here. Like I think that this group is
Yeah.
as deep and as talented as any room that Miami had. Honestly, maybe with or without Barkate, but especially with Barkate, like I think that this is an elite
Hmm.
wide receiver room.
100%. You mentioned it's interesting. You mentioned those intermediate receiving stats from PFF. I didn't know that, but like just watching them, I went back and watched like 5 Duke games this weekend. Just watching them, like it's obvious on third and longs, Barkate is Mensa's go-to guy. Like he is looking for Barkate to get open, and he hits him in those third and long situations. So yeah, they definitely have that chemistry. And you're right, in terms of like scramble drill stuff, like they're on the same page. It's fun to watch in that regard. And he's an NFL wide receiver. He's going to play in the NFL, and he's probably going to have a pretty long career. So it's a big time group. And you're right. Like, look, we saw this year that, Malachi Tony, obviously a special slot receiver, a 1,000-yard receiver as a true freshman, was Miami's go-to receiver this year. You saw, though, as the season progressed, and especially in the college football playoff, defenses definitely made it a point to take him away. And, okay, the outside receivers now have to go make plays. You balance out Malachi Tony with a Cooper Barkate, that's a lot of stress on a defense. And then in addition to that, Miami also has, and we'll get into this, but Miami has Vandrevius Jacobs, big time deep threat, Cam Vaughn, another good all around receiver. They retained a lot of their receiver talent as well. So it's a big time pass catching group, in my opinion, and it's an exciting thing. Last thing I want to get into here was where Miami kind of fell short in the portal. And it's just worth mentioning because he's a big time name. And look, if he came to Miami, it would have been a big deal. But offensive lineman Jordan Seaton, former 5-star recruit, transfer portal player from Colorado, was basically a Miami LSU battle. I think Oregon was in there a little bit. I think Oregon kind of bowed out, when Seaton kind of made it clear he like canceled his visit there, and
Yeah,
then
he
what?
did. He just never went. He never went over there.
Yeah, and Oregon, I think even tried to like
Yeah.
go to him.
Yeah, they visited him.
Um, yeah, so essentially this came down to like a Miami and LSU, for lack of a better term, LSU and Miami bidding war, recruiting war, however you want to phrase it, right? And let's just say like Miami, you know, LSU took it to a price point where Miami's just not willing to take it. I think it's fair to say like LSU is paying Jordan Seaton essentially like good top of the market quarterback money. And so, you know, LSU feels like they're going to get good value by paying him that. Miami felt like, okay, we'll bow out. And so Jordan Seaton is going to LSU. And this essentially means, Matthew McCoy is going to kick out to left tackle. I would just say this. I don't want to get in the weeds of this conversation, but like we've seen Miami do this before with
Hmm.
Jalen Rivers
Right.
going from left guard to left tackle. Worked out okay. I think before, Markel Bell was, when Markel Bell was, what, 2 years ago, he had to be pushed up into the starting lineup when Jalen Rivers was dealing with some injuries, and he performed well. I feel like Miami's offensive line is still going to be the best in the ACC. I still think it's going to take a little step back but I don't think like Matthew McCoy at left tackle is going to be some sort of problem. So if you want to add anything to that, those are my thoughts on that situation.
Yeah, David. And I mean, if we go back, I'm sure we've said this at some point, but I think internally they kind of
Yeah,
viewed Matthew McCoy as someone who is really athletic and has tackle potential. That was kind of in the logjam of Markel Bell and Francis Mawanoa. Like you talk to some people inside the program and they felt like Matthew McCoy has the potential and the upside to be, a really legitimate tackle. So look, he has kind of he's a big human. I think that he has a body that I think you can reshape him a little bit, and I think
yeah,
you
he
can,
probably needs to.
yeah, I think you probably have to lean him up just a little bit just to get him a little bit quicker on his feet. And then you can kind of kick him to the outside. I feel like we kind of saw Jalen Rivers change his body a little bit too,
He
right? To
did.
kind of become more tackly.
Yep.
I think this offseason, I think that's going to be the task with Matthew McCoy is kind of just shaving him up, shaving him down a little bit and getting him a little bit trimmer and leaner and more athletic, kicking him out to tackle. And look, I think he'll be fine. I think he's going to be fine. And look, the rest of these guys it's still going to be a pretty experienced room. Again, we don't have to get too deep into it, but I think the Matthew McCoy thing, if everyone's right of how they feel about him,
I think
I
they
think
will
it'll
be.
turn out. I think it'll be. He's still going to be better than like what you're talking about, David. He's still going to be better than most tackles in the ACC. Just the
Right.
standard, I think, has just gotten so high, which is fair. And so I understand that there's questions and concerns, and I have them too. Like I think it's fair to say
Right.
like, what's this going
Until
to
you
look
see
like?
it.
Right. Exactly.
To me,
So, but
though, and I don't know, this might be hot takey. I personally wouldn't be shocked if he's like, honestly, like very similar to Markel Bell.
yeah, I could see that.
That's my take.
He's a
So,
big guy. He's a huge dude. Like I don't know if how many people realize how big Matthew McCoy is, but he's a big guy, and he's a good athlete, former
and
tight
remind
end.
me, yeah, I was going to say, check me if I'm wrong, but he came up essentially playing tight end in high
Yep.
school. He was a
Yep.
basketball player too. So he has that athleticism
Yeah.
in his body.
Late.
He's
He was
kind
a
of
late riser too. Like he was this kid
right.
from the St. Augustine area who kind of blew up at the. I think he was a
Yeah,
February
Florida.
signee. Yeah,
Yeah.
Florida ended up coming around, and I think he was committed to Minnesota or something at one point. And Florida came around, and it was kind of Florida, Miami at the end. And
Yeah.
yeah, he's the good development, another great developmental story at Miami.
So let's stay on the offensive line with another portal addition.
Yeah.
Jamal Merriweather comes from Georgia, big body type. What's he like? 6'6", 6'7",
Yeah,
305, 310,
just
something like
about that.
that. Was a rotational player at Georgia. I mean, honestly, just played like maybe 60 snaps this year. But what does his addition mean to the offensive line, you think?
I think it's just another veteran body, right? Like this is a guy who's entering year four in college, has played it. I mean, gone through SEC schedules and played and been a part of those offensive lines. And those Georgia offensive lines are always big and strong and all those different types of things. And he's also just been developing in those strength and conditioning programs for all those years. So, look. We saw you win with older players, right? This is a guy that's going into year four, and Miami has a great system and developmental track. And I think when they were recruiting Jamal Merriweather, I think just the tone was this is just great value for an offensive lineman who could potentially, whether it's just be a safety net, like a rotational guy type of thing, or now in a situation where maybe you might have to play him and start him
Yeah.
at least you have an older, experienced guy who's kind of been there, done that. And so I
Mhm.
think that's what you feel better about with Jamal Merriweather. I haven't seen him play. I don't really know much about him.
Right.
Talk to someone who's, close with a lot of players at Georgia. And I think feedback from those guys is that, yeah, like this is a kid who can play. I think there's just a lot of bodies there in Georgia too. So I think this is someone I would project into the starting lineup at this point, David.
Right guard.
Yeah, I think right guard. If Sampson's going to play left guard, then I mean, I think Jamal Merriweather at right guard is probably a fair
Yeah.
projection.
Yeah, I think you project him as a competition with Max Buchanan, who I
Yeah.
know Miami's excited about too. So at least a top six offensive
Yep.
lineman, right? So nice addition there. Let's flip it to the other side of the line of scrimmage. Miami did officially land Damon Wilson, I would say the top pass rusher, just pure pass rusher available in the portal. That's huge as Miami has to replace the pass rushing production of Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. They also added a versatile defensive lineman in Keona Davis from Nebraska. Let's go back to Damon Wilson. Gabby, how did Miami get this done? What do you think it means?
I think just coming out of the portal, I think that there was a high interest in coming home to Miami. You see what Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor did with Jason Taylor. Like, I think there was naturally a lot of interest in what Miami had to offer. I think he explored LSU as an option. He visited Texas Tech, which is always scary, but that wasn't a great fit. And I think once he kind of took those two visits, the vibe I was getting, David, at that point was just like kind of how we're talking about Darius Mensah. It's a matter of when, not if. Damon
Yeah.
Wilson is coming to Miami. It was about him getting down, finally getting down, and all the, again, kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, making sure everything was aligned. And and I kept telling our board, I was like, look, once he's here, if he gets to Miami, like, I feel extremely good about this because it felt like that's where it was trending. And so, this was big for Miami. He's a kid from Venice, Florida, so like south of Tampa.
Hmm.
And he was a five-star-ish pass rusher, signed with Georgia, played 2 years in that odd front, wanted to play in an even front, went to Missouri, totaled 9 sacks, 54 quarterback pressures. And you consider what he could potentially do in the ACC, with a full ACC slate and what, 8 months or so developing under Jason Taylor. And man, I'm super, super excited about what this could look like because this is like a hair on fire type of pass rusher. He's different than Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, where those guys are maybe more complete
Yeah.
as far as just
All around.
well-rounded, all-around
Yeah.
defensive end. I think that part of Damon Wilson's game is what needs to be refined, and if he can adopt that, if he can develop
Yeah.
that, if they can get that out of him, this is a first-round talent at defensive end. I think right now, like to your point, David, talking about the best pass rusher in the portal, he definitely is that. And what he does as a pass rusher, I don't know.
Yeah.
This might
Special.
be a little hot takey, but might be even
Uh,
better than what some of these
uh,
guys. I don't know, man.
uh,
He's a demon off the edge, man.
I agree.
He's big time. He's big time off the
Yes.
edge. We'll see, obviously, but I'm saying he's in an elite category when it comes
That's
to
fair.
rushing the
Yes.
passer. Is I guess the point I'm trying to make. He's in a top tier.
He
He's a
was
top tier
a
pass rusher.
So Miami had two top 10 pass rushers in the country this year. I would say Damon Wilson was a top 10 pass rusher as well.
Right. He's in that category.
Um, I forget if you were there. You might have been there with me, but were you there when they played IMG?
IMG, I was.
So I remember after that game, it might have been you, it might have been me. One of us talked to, one of us talked to Francis, right? That's when
Yeah.
Francis was at IMG. One of us talked to Damon Wilson. And I remember it might have been you. One of us asked Damon, like, "Oh, did Francis recruit you
Yeah.
to Miami?" And he kind of told a story of like, "Yeah, he pancake blocked me, and while I was on the ground, he just told me, 'Come to the U.'" So that,
That's so Francis.
yeah. So he's been on Miami's radar a while.
Forever.
Miami definitely recruited him in high school. It just never really kind of came together in a serious way. Like Miami was always in his like top four, but like never really it felt like in that
I don't
top
even think
two.
I don't even know if he visited, like
Yeah,
formally, like officially visited or anything like that. He was pretty set
right,
on Georgia coming out of high school.
right, right. So he's a big time player, and he leveled up significantly this year at Missouri. And I think there is more meat on the bone
There
of
is, for sure.
trajectory to improve, and it's going to be fun to watch that development. How about Keona Davis? Because I think this is a big time addition too,
Yeah.
in terms of like depth and putting together a defensive line that can navigate a season.
I think this is probably one of the most underrated offseason pickups for Miami. He's a big body, 6'5", 275. He's versatile. I think he kind of played like that. I mean, Nebraska plays that odd front, so kind of played like that 4-eye, which basically is just lining up over the offensive tackle, right? Or just inside of the
Hmm.
offensive tackle in that odd front. So kind of is like an edge setter, can also kind of kick inside and play on the interior. I think he played a little bit of nose for Nebraska too. So he's someone that you can move around. You can do a couple different things with, kind of like a swing tackle in an even front where he can, set the edge on, maybe some run downs or, you can kick him inside and he can be an athletic interior defensive lineman that's going to be tough to kind of handle. Yeah, you're replacing a lot on the defensive line as far as a lot of production. And I think just with numbers and with just depth, I think is how this defensive line is going to win. And I think Keanu Davis is an excellent rotational addition that Miami added to this front. I think that he's actually a pretty good player, and I think it's an impressive addition for them.
I agree. And I think, look, one thing Miami has to replace, like obviously we all know Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor were elite pass rushers. But they were also defensive ends that never left the field. Like they were the top two defensive ends in the country in defensive snaps this year. They both averaged like 50 plus snaps per game, which is an insane number for a defensive end. The reason why they never left the field was because they were so good at setting the edge and stopping the run. And so I think you add a guy like a Davis, and you can piece together that ability to, okay, he can help set the edge, he can help stop the run. I think you project next year's group in terms of like the returners. Like I think Hayden Lowe could be that guy, but we don't know.
Right.
Armando Blunt can be that guy, but he played a lot on the inside this year. I think that's something Damon Wilson and Marquise Lightfoot need to keep improving at, frankly. So. Herbert Scroggins is probably more of a pure pass rusher at this stage too. So he's a guy that I think can play an important role based on situations and teams you play against that might look to exploit those edges. So big time addition. Last thing I want to get to with additions, Gabby, is kicker. We don't have to talk
Oof.
too long about this, but Miami adds two kickers, kind of specialists in some way, guys who are
Right.
honestly like elite at what they do or what they're
Yeah.
being brought in to do. Jack Olson from Northwestern, you already talked about him, but he's your short area guy.
hmm
Jake Weinberg from Florida State, kind of your explosive leg on kickoffs and maybe even long field goals. I like this move a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I like both those guys, and Jack Olson is I mean, he was like 90% on
Yeah.
basic from like 49 and in, or 48 and in. So that's really impressive. And then Jake Weinberg is a kid who I think they just feel like he needs a fresh start, right? He was a
Yep.
top ranked kicker coming out of American Heritage in Delray and went to Florida State, kind of had an up and down season, but he has a massive leg. I think every kickoff attempt that wasn't an onside kick was a touchback. And I think that's one of the things that Miami really valued about Carter Davis too, was just his ability to just make sure that it's a touchback and not
Yep.
risk any sort of return that can kind of get you. So I think Jake Weinberg could be kickoff specialist and potentially long field goal guy, and then those two guys compete for the primary field goal kicker duties the same way Bert Auburn and Carter Davis competed this year. And I think honestly, this might just be a better. These might be
It
just
is.
two better kickers. Like this is a better kicker competition situation than I think Bert Auburn and Carter Davis were, because both those guys had massive question marks coming in.
Yep.
Um, you kind of know what you're getting in Olsen, and then Weinberg, is talented and maybe more in that mold of just needing a fresh start to kind of figure it out. But he has the big leg, so I think this is a great kicker situation.
And Weinberg has multiple years, right?
Yeah,
So, um,
he could be
you
your
know,
long-term answer as he
Ol-
maybe competes this year.
Olson has 1 year left. So,
Yep.
yeah, I like what they did there. Departures. Gabby, I don't, we don't need to like get in the weeds on all these guys, but I think it's worth just like from a news standpoint, kind of highlighting the guys that have entered the portal and are going elsewhere. You got quarterback Emory Williams, wide receiver JoJo Trader, linebacker Popo Aguirre, uh, defensive back Jadis Richards, defensive tackle Artavius Jones, defensive end slash linebacker Malik Bryant, offensive lineman Tommy Kinsler, DB Amari Wallace, linebacker Bobby Washington, Brock Schott, the tight end, Derek Plaz, the offensive lineman, wide receiver Chance Robinson, defensive tackle Dante Simpson, wide receiver Nye Carr, defensive lineman Dalen Russell, wide receiver Ray Joseph. So, look, good luck to all these guys, wherever they, landed. A lot of these guys already know their destinations, and you
hmm
can look that up on Inside the U. We don't need to touch on all these, but like, which one of these are you going to be monitoring just from your vantage point of like, hey, I'd like to see how this guy does at his next stop, or maybe even like, I really hope this guy does well.
Yeah, I think for me it's JoJo Trader. I think just we know the potential that's there, and we know the talent that he has. And I think going to NC State where
He
it's
needs a fresh start.
he needs a fresh start. He also someone I think he needs just a familiar faces too, right?
Yeah.
And going and linking back up with CJ Bailey, who was his high school quarterback.
Hmm.
At a good program. Like they run a good program over there. There's a lot of continuity just with the head coach and structure and all that stuff. I think that'll be good from Chance Robinson's there. Popo Aguirre is there now too. So I think there's
Hmm.
going to be some guys that he knows and is familiar with. I'm rooting for JoJo Trader, man. Like I hope
Yeah.
it all does work out for him. And
He's a good guy, but I think he does need a fresh start to
yeah,
like show what he can do, right?
yeah,
Like clean slate. They don't know you at NC State, so
yep,
go take advantage of that. Ball out.
yep.
Go do your thing.
Yeah, I think too, Emery. I kind of want to see how he does at ECU.
Yeah, of course.
I think that'll be fun, and
And I think
uh,
he'll do well.
yeah, I hope so.
So good guy. Um, all these guys, good guys. So wish him the best. Retention, Gabby. This is an area where it doesn't get as much play when you talk about the portal, but when you recruit at a high level in the high school ranks like Miami does, it is critical. And look, teams know who the teams are that like other teams know which teams recruit at a high level. And so they're always going to try and be poaching your best players that maybe are playing rotational roles or taking a red shirt, etc. And so it's important to keep those guys on your roster. And I just want to run through the key retentions that I think happened this cycle, and you can pick out wherever you want to discuss that you're impressed. So running back room, right? Miami retained number one, Mark Fletcher, not going to the NFL draft. Shamar Brown, Gerard Pringle. So the SEC was coming after Gerard Pringle and Jordan Lyle.
Yeah.
So their top four running backs are all coming back. And Jordan Lyle, I do think there's something to the Florida State stuff that was out there. And I think Miami stepped up and just made sure he stayed rather than go to Florida State. Because I think Miami feels like Jordan Lyle's talented. And, if he did leave, he was going to ball out. So that was big. Ahmad Moten, defensive tackle, big to retain him instead of him going to the NFL draft. I think there's a chance, Gabby. Like, I think he would have been a day two pick in the NFL draft. I think there's a chance he might have even snuck into the second round if he tried this year. So it's huge that Miami's getting him back.
Yeah.
D tackle was really impactful down the stretch in that and in that college football playoff run. And his trajectory is still going up. So one of the best development stories of the Mario Cristobal era. Josh Moore, the wide receiver, talented guy, freshman, freak potential. Like, it's going to be tough. I think there's a chance, though, that he is a starter next year and he
Hmm.
produces in a big way. If he embraces this competition and levels up, there's nobody on the team that has the traits that Josh Moore has,
Right.
and he's just got to put it all together. Cornerback room, the SEC was kind of shark circling those guys, and Miami retained that room, their top corners. With Emery leaving, it was key to retain Luke Nickel as your top backup. Motori and Chase Smith returned. They're both, granted extra years of eligibility due to medical reasons in the past. I think other guys that deserve recognition here too. And these are guys that, frankly, you recruit well, and so you have to pay up to retain them because they went out and performed. Malachi Tony, you got to pay like a top 10 receiver in the country. Armando Blunt, Marquise Lightfoot, Justin Scott, your former five-star recruits on the defensive line, they all stepped up big time and played well in rotational roles. You got to pay them now as key starters. Bryce Fitzgerald, freshman All American, 6 interceptions, going to be an important playmaker next year. So, my some of those were like, identifying the talent evals, like Malachi Tony and Bryce Fitzgerald, great evals, performed well. You got to pay them. The other ones are big time evals too, but five-star recruits, everyone knew they had that potential. They showed it, you developed it. Now you got to retain it. With these retentions, Gabby, you know, this is massive. Like this is a big
Huge.
reason why I think Miami, honestly, like when they finally lock Mensa in, to me, it's a top five roster, and these retentions are a big reason why.
I think definitely a top five roster. Like I think that this team's going to be when these preseason polls start coming out. Like
Yeah.
Miami's to me is a lock to be a top five team. I mean, some of these quote unquote bigger brands might get we might do that whole little thing again where we start like putting
Yeah,
all
like
these teams that
LSU.
right, we're gonna start doing maybe some of that. And Texas is gonna get a ton of preseason love, deservedly so. Arch Manning played awesome down the stretch and they did their thing in the portal. Ohio State's obviously gonna be up there, Georgia's always gonna be up there, but to me this is a top five team, no doubt, coming back based on what they did in the transfer portal. There's a lot to this retention stuff that really moves the needle for me. I mean, all those guys that you mentioned, I'm I think this cornerback room, retaining this entire cornerback room was big because I think we kind of came into it thinking, David, like, hey, maybe they keep three of them. Maybe they're able to keep three of them.
Right.
It's a lot. Jabari Antoine, who's also coming back. Maybe he steps into that fourth cornerback role, and that would have been good. Like, I think that would have been still really solid. But to keep all four of these guys was a really big deal. The running backs, keeping all those guys is a really big deal.
Which surprises you more, running backs or corners?
Corners. I
I'm more
mean,
surprised by running backs. I mean, I'm equally surprised by
yeah.
both of them. But like, man, I thought Lyle was gone.
Yeah, I thought Lyle was probably gonna leave too. That was definitely like, oh, okay. Like to me that was a pleasant surprise. But
It's
I
a
thought
good thing.
yeah, it is. It's huge.
And it to me
People
it speaks to Lyle. Like
yeah,
to me it says that Lyle's a dog and
yeah.
he's like
I'm
cuz
about this, yeah.
he was RB1 coming out of fall camp.
Yeah.
And to me it kind of says like okay, maybe he's got that dog in him where he's like, "No, I'm going to go get my job back."
Yeah. That's
I
big.
like
No,
that.
he's good, and everyone knows he's good. And I think it just got. I think he once he kind of came back from that injury, I think it was just hard to kind of get into the flow of things. But I mean, when he's healthy and he's good, we talked about him. I was talking about him coming into camp. Like I thought he has like NFL potential at running back, and that's
Which
still
he
there.
does. Yeah,
I think that's still
trait-wise.
there.
Yeah.
And look, again, he's a guy that goes somewhere and goes to a Florida State and has like a Trey Benson like bounce back or something crazy like that. So I think keeping him is a really big deal. And this running back room is really good. But I mean, I really just thought it was going to be tough to keep all four of those corners.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
premium position. Running backs, I think is not that it's not valuable, but cornerback is considered a premium position. To keep four cornerbacks who basically play, I mean, Damari was obviously injured and OJ was injured for a time too, but those guys played en route to a national championship game appearance. And there were big time schools coming after each one of those guys, waiting to see which one was going to be available. And keeping all four of them to me is big time. Like that's how you win, man. And you've written about it a ton of times. You got to be good at you got to be able to cover the receivers. You got to be good at quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. You got to be good at corner. And Miami, for as much cornerback trouble as they've had throughout the years, it's not going to be a problem for the foreseeable future with the guys that they have on the roster.
So, big picture, and then we'll move on from the portal. Big picture, the net of this portal window cycle for Miami, right? The net of, grading the additions and the subtractions. Was Miami's class a positive or a negative, etc.? To me, it's a unquestionable positive.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like Miami crushed it? Where do you feel like, okay, I'm nitpicking here, but maybe I wish they would have addressed this position.
Yeah, for me, that's probably linebacker. Um,
Yeah.
just because you lose a rotational guy in Popo Aguirre. Um, and you obviously lose Wesley Bassett. And then I just wish they would have done more to address that, especially with Corey Heatherman being the guy who coaches that room. Maybe he just feels good about that room and
Yeah.
some of the guys in it. That's what I'm hoping. But I do wish they added a little bit more at linebacker. I think probably the same could be said about offensive line as far as just solidifying the base a little bit more, or just maybe feeling better about it. There wasn't much. I mean, Jordan Seaton was probably really the only like big needle mover
Right.
in the transfer portal available for Miami. Yeah, and I think maybe tight end too. I think you can maybe make an argument again. I don't think there was a lot of like perfect formulas or great answers for what was available for Miami at tight end, but that was a room that I think just needs a little bit more juice. And I think you could have potentially tried to upgrade in the transfer portal, but you didn't, and there wasn't really much. I don't think Miami had really much traction with anything that would have, again, kind of helped this thing move along. And they do believe in Luka Gilbert, but still, I think there's just a little bit too many question marks there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Where do you feel like they crushed it?
Crushed it at receiver. I think that this is a really good haul of guys that they brought in. Even Vandrevius Jacobs and Cam Vaughn. I think those are two awesome additions. And you throw Cooper Barkay into the mix, and I think that that's just like an absolute grand slam. Man, the feedback I get on Omar Thornton, not only just from the Miami side of it, but just from people that have been around him. Uh, People think this kid's awesome. People think
Yeah.
this kid is an awesome football player. So I'm really optimistic about that. I think that that was a big addition for Miami. Just on the back end, you got to replace Jacoby Thomas. You got to replace Keontae Scott in some ways too. And I think Omar Thornton is versatile, and he's just people just describe him as a dog. Like I think Miami fans I think he's gonna be a fan favorite once people kind of start seeing him in action down here. So I think those are a couple areas where I think they crushed it. Obviously, quarterback once Darian Mensah officially
Yeah, yeah.
comes through, I think is good. And then what they did on the defensive line was, I
Hmm.
think I think that was the perfect response to what to like kind of keep the momentum on the defensive front alive and just kind of transition into this post Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor era with Damon Wilson and then adding depth, Jarquez Carter and Keanu Davis as well.
Yeah, it's still a big time roster. We'll see. I don't know if I'm ready to say yet it is a better roster. I'm not saying it isn't. I think it's fair to have that discussion. But let's see. Let's see how it looks in the spring. Okay, some more news to get into in terms of the coaching staff. Tight ends coach Cody Woodiel has moved on to Ole Miss, so now Miami's looking for its next tight ends coach. Generally just the calendar now, like these staff changes are kind of happening in February now, so we'll see how quickly Miami fills that role. But Gabby, Cody Woodiel goes to Ole Miss. He's from Mississippi.
Right.
So he gets the opportunity to go back home. He is Mario Cristobal's like he is one of his right hand man type of guys. Um, were you surprised by this move? What do you think this move means?
Yeah, I was a little surprised just because of how far it goes back. Like he was an analyst at Oregon for a couple years under Mario before, and then he followed him to Miami, and a few guys followed Mario to Miami, but Woodle was the one who stayed the longest. And look, he is from Mississippi, and he has a young family now, so I get the appeal of being closer to home and all those things. So from that perspective, I kind of get it. And then the tight end room, I think maybe just needed a shakeup. Just obviously this wasn't the most productive season for those guys, and so maybe just a fresh voice and is probably a good thing for that room. But he's a good coach and he's a former offensive lineman, so kind of understands just like the line of scrimmage play and the importance of that from the tight end room. And so, best of luck to him in Oxford. He's an awesome dude and an
Good guy.
awesome coach. So, rooting for him. And I am curious to see where Miami kind of goes at that position.
Yeah, and we'll have more on that as we get more names on InsideTheU.com. All right, want to move on to the schedule talk, Gabby. Miami knows their 2026 schedule now. We're not going to run through the whole schedule here on the podcast. Go on to InsideTheU.com. You can check it out, or just Google it. But Gabby, when you saw this schedule for the first time, how did it hit you? What were your first initial reactions to seeing this schedule from a Miami standpoint?
At first, just knee-jerk reaction was this is very manageable. Last year's schedule was difficult in comparison to this one when you consider
I agree.
the non-conference games, how the
Yep.
season starts, having to open with Notre Dame, having to play a really good Group of Five team in USF, and then you get an SEC school in Florida. Then it's a challenging way to open the season, and Miami navigated that. And I think this is a pretty favorable schedule, David. They don't play either of the two ACC teams that they lost to last year, so
Yep.
they don't play SMU and they don't play Louisville.
Right. Who
So I
have good schematic
right,
coaches. And
exactly.
that's, yeah.
So I think that all things considered, and again, you can get into the weeds about the days of the week and the Thursday and the Friday games, which are
Does
annoying.
that
Are def
bother you? Like,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I think it's annoying just from like
Like, most of them are in the early season. It's kind
right,
of like, okay. But,
yeah.
like, the Virginia Tech one, okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's like, why do we got to do that? And Why does Miami have to play Penn State on a Friday night at Miami? Um,
Penn State.
I'm just joking. Um, but yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like whatever. Like, to me, it's just like this is your biggest brand, and you're kind of throwing these like these Friday, Thursday games out there. Whatever, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean it's the ACC. That's
Yeah,
just
I think the bye's positioned pretty well, David. I don't know how you feel about the bye, but I think that's a pretty good spot for it.
yeah.
I think
I mean I'd
there's
prefer
only
it.
one bye this year, which I think is interesting.
Right.
I'm not sure why that is. I think there's been two byes.
Just
Uh,
calendar. Just
yeah,
how the
so
calendar
some
works.
people have two byes or no? Do you know?
No, it's a
No,
one
no.
by year.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
a one by year. Okay,
Unless you
so
play like week 0, but
got you. Okay, so one bye, and I think it comes at a pretty good spot because you kind of get your four games out of the way. At Stanford to open the season, which I think is all. I think that's honestly another
that's when
win
you
for
want
Miami.
them.
Right, that's when you want Stanford is to get that trip out of the way before you're kind of in the weeds or in the thick of this schedule. So I think that's a win getting Stanford in week one. You go to Wake as your second ACC game, Central Michigan, and then you go to Clemson and then you get the bye. So I think it's a great time to reset before
Hmm.
playing six ACC games and Notre Dame, and then you get the bye before Florida State, which is obviously your big rivalry game. And that's a interesting stretch there. Like just navigating October, I think is going to be really interesting between playing Clemson, Florida State, Pitt, and then going to North Carolina, which has been the brand
5
of
straight.
North Carolina.
It's
It has been a thorn on Miami's side
yeah.
for quite some time. So, and I think I think October and then pivoting straight into a road game at Notre Dame, which will be the only cold weather game, I think, maybe of the year, unless it's cold on the 31st at North Carolina, which is possible, but not
Yeah, it's
like deathly
possible.
cold. So you get really one cold weather game, and then you finish off the season three straight home games. I think the schedule
Hmm.
plays out quite well. Like if you're drawing it up, like give me this all day. I think this
Yeah.
is a win for Miami.
For me, it's the easiest schedule Miami's had in the last 20 years. Both like the way it lays out and also the opponents.
Yeah.
Um, again, you get your road games early, like you were saying. Those 3 straight home games, I went and looked. 3 straight home games. Miami's never ended a season with 3 straight home games since joining the ACC in 2004. And so,
Wow.
yes, they play Virginia Tech on a Friday night in that stretch, but it's like, all right, you get 3 straight home games, and I would take that trade off, I guess. I also think it's interesting, like if I was nitpicking the bye week, would I prefer to have the bye week before Notre Dame? Yes, of course, but my second choice would be between that Clemson and Florida State game. I'm curious on your answers to this, Gabby, because I don't know if I have made up my mind yet. Let's start with this. I got 2 questions. Toughest game outside of Notre Dame, where would you say? You're muted.
My bad. I would say toughest game outside of Notre Dame. Man, I don't know. I think that Friday night against Virginia Tech is interesting to
For
me.
spooky reasons or for like you
I
think
think
their roster's good or
I mean, I think they brought a look. They brought in some quality pieces from that Penn State team, and James Franklin at the end of the day is a good coach.
he's good. Yeah, yeah.
And I think playing Virginia Tech late in the season, like there's some figure it out potential as far as them just being like a respectable ACC team. Like I don't think Virginia Tech's gonna like win the conference or anything like that, but I do think that we could get to November 20th and just be like, crap, like Virginia Tech's actually playing some good ball right now. So I think Virginia Tech is interesting. I personally, just I'm not a believer in Florida State. I'm honestly not a believer in Clemson. So like the at Clemson might maybe just like atmospheric and like brand wise, but that Clemson roster to me has a lot of questions. And I their quarterback situation to me isn't great. It's still early in the year where I think they're still going to be kind of figuring it out too. And they lost some key defensive players from this team that was still not very good. And
Right.
so Clemson doesn't really inject a ton of fear in me. Pittsburgh could be interesting. Like I think Pittsburgh has some potential to be
They
good
have a
again.
quarterback. They lost a lot though too. Like they lost
Yeah.
Biles, as you
Yeah,
know.
they lost
Like
Biles. They lost a lot. I mean, those a lot of the rest of those linebackers are those guys. Like Kyle Lewis, he's gone. He has
I
to be
think
gone,
he's
right?
NFL.
And
Yeah.
then the other
So
one, the Lovelace, is it Lovelace or whatever? I don't know
yeah,
if
I
he's
don't know
still
if
there.
he's still there.
Yeah, they lost a lot. Desmond Reed,
He's
is he
gone.
back?
Yeah.
Wow, dang, that's tough. Tough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just going with the big brand, but and again, I'm not like a Clemson believer, but I'd probably say Clemson, but I don't think Clemson's that great. I think Virginia Tech's a fine team to bring to that discussion. But that's the point though, right? Like
Yeah,
it's kind of like that Notre Dame game's huge. And
huge. Yeah,
honestly, like, if Miami goes 11 and 1 and loses that Notre Dame game, Miami's going to be in the college football
right.
playoff and, in the ACC championship game, et
Of
cetera. They're
course.
going to be fine. But like if they trip up, they probably need to go win that Notre Dame game to
Yeah,
have a quality win
right.
because we'll see. We'll see how teams rise up.
Yeah, Miami's
But
schedule is going to get torched by the national
yeah,
pundits this
as it
season.
should. Like
Right.
it's not, you know,
Miami needs to. This needs to be the
last
year that
year's
Miami handles
schedule
business. Yeah.
was way harder
Right.
and it got torched. So,
Yeah.
um, all right. In addition to that, the toughest two-game stretch. Where are you going?
Toughest two-game stretch. Yeah, maybe that Clemson by Florida State, I think is tough. Maybe North. I don't know what North Carolina is going to be again. I don't know if I see like a super tough two-game stretch here,
So it
but I
goes
would probably
at
say,
UNC, at Notre Dame.
yeah, I think
That's
maybe.
the only back-to-back roadie, right?
Yeah,
On the
only
whole schedule.
back-to-back road games, and yeah, so maybe I would go with that pocket.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And again, like I think it's fair to like try and include Notre Dame just because they're clearly the best team.
Yeah.
But like Notre Dame Duke, I don't know. Like you're
Duke's going to
stealing
be
Duke's
tough
best
too.
players.
Yeah, maybe just like storyline wise, that'll be two fun games in a row. Um,
Um,
I
but
just have a
yeah,
hard
it's
time
not
seeing two
like
games where I'm just like, got to go back to back here. I would if it probably would have to be at North Carolina and at Duke. As
road
far as
game,
just two games in a row, like pocketing two games where it's like, oh, that's tough or
road
that's
game,
tough.
cold
Right.
weather.
Two straight cold weather road
Notre
games.
Dame's
One of them
good.
being on Halloween night. And
Yeah.
Notre Dame's going to be I don't I mean Notre Dame's going to be very real possibility that Miami and Notre Dame are both like undefeated and like top
hmm
five teams in the country when
It's a
Miami goes
huge
up to
game, man.
yeah,
That's going to be a massive, massive
it's going to
game.
be a big one.
All right, let's
Ooh,
get out of here.
David,
Go
quick
ahead.
newsy. Darian Menson Duke have reached a settlement agreement his agency announced paves the way for his expected transfer to Miami. So Darian Mensah has settled.
Nice. I'm
Big
shocked.
win. Big
Yes.
win. Big win for the Canes.
It is huge. I mean, it's massive. Like
Yeah, yeah, of course.
he's big time quarterback. So,
Yeah.
and now we get to actually watch something enjoyable during spring football. So I'm
Let's go.
excited about that.
Huge.
All right, let's close the book. This is the last segment. Let's close the book on 2025, right? And you can take this wherever you want to take this, Gabby. But like, what sticks out to you as it relates to 2025? And it can be like the season as a whole, how they responded, just how they looked, how this is like the culmination of kind of, Mario Cristobal's vision coming together, and now it's about, keeping this thing kind of rolling downhill. It can be even like just the national championship game. Does anything still stick out to you from that? As we close the book on 2025, what still sticks out in your mind about this season this year?
Yeah, to me, it's just, man, this run was so special. Losing that national championship game sucks, but this 2025 season will just be just about like I'll remember it just as the absolute craziness that is the thrill of making the playoffs being its own thing, and then the run
Yeah,
of just going game by game, where it's just like you just don't know what's gonna happen, and like there's just more at the end. There's more lights at the end of at the back ends of each of these tunnels of just like, all right, you beat Texas A&M, it's like awesome. It's like okay, now and like just the run was so special. Like just being in that and
yep.
watching that was just to me one of the coolest things I think I've ever experienced. And man, and just understanding and appreciating how difficult it is to do what Miami did last year. Like that's
Yep.
an absolute grind. And
Yep.
if
And
you're
it takes a
not,
lot of luck too. That's out
yeah,
of your
for sure,
control,
a
like with
1,000%.
injuries and
Yep. Injuries, matchups, I mean,
yeah.
everything. And it's all hard, regardless of who you have to play. It's hard, but
Yes.
Man, any way that you can relieve or take something out of your plate, take something off of your plate there, like winning your conference and getting a bye, or like being one of those teams and whatever it is, it's just this is such a challenging thing, and to me, it just becomes impossible to like project, right? Like any team, it's just like, man, winning a national championship is
Yeah.
so hard these days.
Yes.
More teams get a chance at it, but I still think the path to actually doing it
Oh, the
is
grind is
as
crazy.
difficult as ever.
Yeah.
It's not like you finish your season and two teams are playing in a national championship game. It's like, no, you got to play like four major bowl games you have to win three major bowl games just to get to a chance to play for a
Yep.
national championship. It's a total grind. It was a blast. One of the coolest things ever. I'll always remember this run and how special it was.
Yeah, and to your point, like Indiana running the table, just, you
Wow.
know, impressive that
So
they
impressive.
pulled that off. And yeah, I'm with you, man. Like number one, it's just like gratitude for this whole thing coming together. Gratitude to the UM administration for really embracing football when they hired Mario Cristobal. Gratitude to Mario Cristobal because like nobody works harder than Mario Cristobal to get Miami to this point. And so seeing it all come together, it was cool, to see him kind of appreciate it. Um, I'll remember too, like, you know, the push. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but Gabby, but like the push to even just like get into the
Yeah.
playoffs, the information war
Yep.
that was happening, as it related to Miami versus Notre
Yep.
Dame and that debate, that was fun. Um, and yeah, man, with that the national championship game, like Miami fought, Miami played hard, and look, you know, to me, the way I think about that game is like really, Miami. That game was played by Miami the way it had to be played to go win the game. It's just the difference was a block punt touchdown, and that was kind of the margin that Indiana took advantage of and was able to win the game. But Miami showed up and played their style and fought back into the game, and again played in a way that was good enough to win the game outside of that special teams blunder. Um, but anyways, it was an awesome experience to get to, like, just from a nerdy media work job standpoint, like it was cool covering a national championship game,
Yep.
right?
It
So
was it was a blast.
uh, it was a fun year, fun run. I think Miami's going to be in the mix again in 2026. We're going to chronicle it all as we always do on InsideU.com. So support this podcast, support the work we do to try and make this all fun and enjoyable as fans at InsideU.com. Go give us a subscription. Go read our work on Inside the U. Keep listening to this podcast. We appreciate you guys so much. Go support our sponsors. We'll get out of here on that note. And until next time, take care.